Hey everyone, welcome to another limited palette video. Today I will be coloring a sketch with these three colors. This is Quinacridone Deep Gold. The pigment is PO48 with PY150. This is Perylene Red. The pigment is PR178. And this is French Ultramarine PB29. As usual, let's start by painting some color swatches first and also creating some color mixtures. So I'm going to start with Quinacridone Deep Gold. This is a very transparent color, really nice. It has some granulation. Let me just dilute this part here to see how it looks like when it's diluted. So this is a very warm yellow, almost like an earth tone. The look on paper versus the look on the color label is obviously very different. Next we have Perylene Red, PR178. This is a bit opaque. Let me dilute this. And lastly we have French Ultramarine, the color that needs no introduction. And now let's paint the color wheel. Let me add a bit of red to Quinacridone Deep Gold. And let me add a bit more red to that. This is how Perylene Red looks like compared to the mixture beside. And now we can add in some Ultramarine. So the color immediately darkens slightly. Let me add a bit more Ultramarine. And this is the sort of purple I can get, which is a rather muted purple. This is how Ultramarine looks like on its own. And now let's add a little Quinacridone Deep Gold to it. And a bit more. This is how the three colors look when mixed together. Let me add a little bit of Ultramarine to shift the color. And let me add a little bit of red to that. And let's add some Quinacridone Deep Gold to the mixture. And some Ultramarine again. Let's mix the three in concentration to see if I can get a very dark black. And yes, I can. I just need to add more Ultramarine. So this is great. I can get a lot of contrast with this wash. These are the colors we can get from the limited palette. It's a subtle look. The colors are a bit muted. The secondary colors, they are not really that vibrant, but I think they look pretty nice on their own like this. And these are the neutralized tones, the grays we can get. I think they look great as well. With Quinacridone Deep Gold, which I consider to be a muted yellow, it's not possible to mix a really bright secondary like a bright orange or a bright green. The purples from Perylene Red and French Ultramarine, they are quite nice as well. I prefer this one, so I need to add a little bit more red to shift the colors to this side. This purple is a bit more somber, a bit more serious. Now that we know the colors that are possible with this limited palette, let's use them to color this sketch that I drew a few days ago at a cafe. Let's take a closer look at this sketch before I paint over. This was drawn at a cafe called Groundstory. And in this cafe there are a lot of interesting things to draw. There are so many elements to draw, a lot of overlapping elements, things in the foreground like these two people at the table here, the plants, and then a lot of items in the background that I drew with thinner lines. This is the reference photo that I will be using today for this sketch. There is a lot of white. There are some shadow areas. I'm going to use a gray tone to paint all those shadow areas here. And I see a lot of warm brown colors. This will be great for Quinacridone Deep Gold. And as for all the neutral colors, again, I would mix all the three colors together to get those. And for the dark areas, I already know that I can get those very dark areas with the three colors. So let's get started. Let's start by mixing the shadow tones first for the walls and also for the ground. I'm going to mix the three colors together to get that shadow tone. I'm using this squirrel brush today. This is a size 1 ColorPro series 2803 squirrel brush. This squirrel brush is made in Japan, so it's difficult to find outside of Japan. Here in Singapore, it's sold at Straits Commercial. So let's color the wall here first. Oh, this is a bit too much. So let me just dilute this down a bit. And now I can use Quinacridone Deep Gold to color the benches, the tables, anything that looks brown or looks yellowish. I have just finished painting, so let's compare this sketch with the reference photograph. I just realized that for the reference photograph, I was using a wide angle lens, so I was able to capture a lot of the ceiling. So there is more white in this photograph compared to my sketch. My sketch actually focused more on the lower area here. In case you are wondering about the sketchbook that I'm using, this is a customized sketchbook that was made by the Society of Physical Disabled here in Singapore. I passed them some Fabriano Studio watercolor paper and they made this sketchbook with that paper. Now this paper has 25% cotton. It's quite lightweight, I think it's about 200 GSM like that. So the paper does buckle quite a bit when you apply large areas of washes over it. But I like this paper because it can show off the colors really well. There's a viewer who asked me where he or she can get this watercolor brush that I always use. This is the size 5 Nevskaya Palitra Kolinsky Sable brush series 1113. I bought this at Straits Art, which is an art store here in Singapore. Now if you want to buy a sable brush, if you want to buy specifically this brush, I don't think you have to go all the way out to buy it from this shop that I mentioned, because most top quality Kolinsky sable brush, they perform the same, so you can just get any other brand that is available at your local art store. I bought this because this is the one available at my local art store. Let's take a closer look at the sketch and talk more about the colors. So for the wooden areas here, the benches, I was able to use Quinacridone Deep Gold straight from the tube. And the colors, they do not look too glaring. For certain colors, when you use the colors straight from the tube, they will look too jarring, but not so with Quinacridone Deep Gold, because this is already a muted yellow and it works really well for painting wood. Like all these areas, all of these are actually painted straight, almost straight from the tube without a lot of mixing. For the plants here, I use Quinacridone Deep Gold mixed with French Ultramarine, so I was able to get a rather dark shade of green, but this is a very muted version of green. I'm not able to get bright green, but in this case it's alright because all the plants in this cafe, they are not lit by sunlight, so they are not really bright yellow green. I don't need to use a bright yellow green, so that's good for this purpose. So for the wash, I actually made some mistake. I should have covered all the areas beneath these boards here. Initially I painted with one wash across just right below, but when I look at the photo the second time, look at it more closely, I realized that all these areas, this huge area here, they are all in the shade, so I should have just color all this with one wash rather than multiple washes. So now it looks a bit untidy, but I was able to get a very nice neutral sort of wash. Here we have a bit more ultramarine, so this is a cooler version. A cooler version of shadows. Generally speaking, I like to paint shadows with cooler colors. So this sketch has a lot of details. I like to sketch with a lot of details, but when it comes to coloring, it is really difficult. I'm not particularly careful at filling the colors within lines, so sometimes the sketch can look a bit splashy. Quinacridone Deep Gold is able to contrast very nicely against those dark shapes. For the shadow areas of the wood, I added Perylene Red with Ultramarine. So that's this area here as well, Perylene Red Ultramarine with Quinacridone Deep Gold. For the flesh tone, it's Quinacridone Deep Gold with Perylene Red. You can really get some very nice shadow colors with the limited palette. And there is some granulation as well from French Ultramarine. Let's take a look at this side. Again, this is Quinacridone Deep Gold mostly. This is with some Ultramarine and Perylene Red added to get the darker tones. So this is the completed sketch painted with just these three colors. And that's all for today's video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments section below. I hope this video is helpful. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.